In this session, we're going to be going through Cairns property and a little bit of the leading indicators around what's happening in Cairns, what the supply and demand for property is in Cairns, and then to cap it all off, we're going to go through a bit of a case study in Cairns as well. Before we get into it, the usual advice disclaimer, please do not take anything in this presentation as literal. It's very important that you seek professional financial advice before you go making any decisions around your specific finances. Seek mortgage broker advice, financial planning advice, tax advice, legal advice before acting on any of the information that you hear or see in this presentation. If you're looking for specific property advice, then I'm more than happy to help you out. Okay, so here's what's been happening in Cairns over the most recent period. You can see that largely between 2018 and 2021, there wasn't too much action going on there. However, since probably early 2021 here, we've seen rises in property prices over the last 3 to 5 year period. You can see here that over the last 10 years that property prices in Cairns have risen 7% per annum for the last 10 years, 9% per annum over the last 7, and 13% per annum there. So overall, 70%, that's roughly 55, 56%, and then just under 40% over a 3-year basis there. More recently, over the last quarter, property prices have come up 7.7%. And then over the last 12 months, 15.2%. This is the price per square meter coefficient curve. What this indicates is, as the name suggests, the price per square meter. You can see there's a nice coefficient line that gives you an indication of property prices based on different sizes. And you can see certain clusters around different property types. For example, you can see units here. You can see villas that are a little bit larger or larger units at around the 100 to 200 square meter mark. Then you can see at around the 300 mark, we start to get into the house territory there. And then your typical home is around anywhere between 500 and up to 900, 1,000 square meters. Then you can see your bigger parcels of land here. Now, these are typically your rural properties. Overall, if you're buying in different segments, you can start to see the price per square meter. Use this as an indication of what your property might be worth in that given area. Now, overall, if we have a look at the housing value index in certain areas, you can see predominantly Edmonton, this is Mount Sheridan, Bentley Park. These areas here have risen by more than 12% in value over the last 12 months. And then in terms of rental growth, rents have been rising fairly steadily since 2020. And you can see that reflected in this data where the 3 to 7 year time frame is your highest. So over the last 3 years, we're just under 9%. Let's just call it 27%. Over the last 7 years, 7.6%, which is roughly here when rents started rising. So all in all, over a 7-year time frame, we're looking at roughly 50% in rental growth. Looking a little more recently, over the last quarter, rents have risen 6.9%. And then over the last 12 months, rents have risen 8.9%. In terms of the location of rental growth, again, you can see Mount Sheridan, Edmonton, Bentley Park. These are predominantly where rents are rising the most. And again, they sit between the sort of 5 and 10% mark there. If we look at the overall number of property listings, again, very similar story. You can see that properties are in short supply since around about 2020. You can see property supply has been building roughly since 2014. And then as COVID began over this 2-year time frame, property listings have been in short supply. Now you can see that there is somewhat of a plateau here in 2024. And then again, you can see properties are again in shorter supply, where the supply of property is coming down. Cairns itself has never seen this shorter supply of property, as you can see over the last 15, 16 year recorded history. If we have a look at the vacancy rate, very similar story. Vacancy rate of roughly 0.7, 0.8% there. And again, we've never had such a shortage of vacancies, apart from a bit of a trough here in recorded history. If we look at the number of rental listings had come up towards the end of 2025. You can see it's somewhat seasonal there in your summer period there. Every December, January, February, you can see weekly rental listings are peaking there. And we're starting to come to a peak at the end of the year as well. However, all in all, the number of rental listings has been predominantly low since 2021. And you can see a trend in terms of the shortage of rental listings there. So here we have a case study in Mount Sheridan, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car house that sits on 714 square meters. It sold recently for $744,000, only about a month or two ago. Stamp duty and upfront costs are around about $32,000. Rent appraisal of $715 per week, based on a 5% gross rental yield. Your estimated council rate's going to be $3,800. Water rate's about $800, and landlord home and contents insurance at about $2,500. Look, depending on your level of cover, your excess, your location, policy type, features and benefits, a few other bits and pieces, but roughly $2,500, maybe even a little bit closer to $3,000. Property management costs about 8.8%. You're looking at $63 per week. And then interest-only loan repayments based on an 80% LVR, we're looking at $27.28 per month at a 5.5% interest rate. Your deposit and upfront costs on this property are going to be just over $180,000. And then your ongoing costs, we're looking at around about $59.28, roughly $120 per week on a property like this. So thank you everybody for watching. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to hear if you have any feedback or any commentary around investing in Cairns. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk to you more about investing in property. Thank you again and have a great day.